precept steps where we are, what are we doing? We're seeking God diligently in his ways, right? All right, let's keep after it. This is Mishpatim, which means judgments. And it's a little hard to see, but I thought it was a pretty picture, so I put it up there anyway. There's the Hebrew for Mishpatim. Up there at the top, kind of rainbowy looking. Do you see it? Yeah. Yeah. Some letters you don't know yet. You got a mayim and a shin, and you haven't studied those yet. So, all right. So the Torah portion. So last Torah portion, we were given the 10 words, the 10 commandments. Okay. And we're all kind of familiar with those, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, right? Don't take your neighbor's stuff.
Say wife or mate, that's take care of what God doesn't say that steal.
Yeah, that's right. Don't steal. Yeah.
Otherwise you'll
get arrested. Well, God had a little bit tougher policy. We're going to talk about that today. Okay. Another important 10 commandment was keep the Shabbat, right? Like we're doing today. So it's kind of odd that I jumped over to the New Testament and to Matthew, but let's take a look at it. This guy came up to him and said to Yeshua, Rabbi, which means teacher. Okay. Which of the mitzvot in the Torah is most important? And he told him, you are to love Adonai your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. This is the greatest and most important mitzvah. Mitzvah is like commandment, okay? And the second is similar to it. You are to love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says something really important. He says all, not some, all of the Torah and the prophets are dependent on these two mitzvot. And if you look at the 10 commandments, you can see that the first 4 commandments are about how we love God. Okay? He says, remember, I am. I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. I am. Okay? Don't make anything to represent me. Don't carve images. Don't make anything that represents me. Remember, when you were at the mountain, did you see a form? No. What did you do? You heard a voice. Only a voice. Okay? So no images. He said, be careful with my name. Don't use it for just any old thing. Okay? And keep the Sabbath. Those are the 4 commands that we show God we love him by doing those. The rest of the commandments are about how we love each other, how we love people in community. How do we walk that out? And so he has, honor your father and mother, don't kill people, don't steal, don't lie, don't take your neighbor's stuff. Okay? And God decided, I think they need a little bit more specific instructions on this. So the Torah portion today, the first 3 chapters of it, is all about God explaining to us how to do these things. Okay, so honor your father and mother. First thing it says, whoever attacks his father or mother must be put to death. Whoa. Okay. Now, the word attack there is pretty vicious. Okay. It's like almost like you try to kill them. Okay. Or you hit them pretty hard. Okay.
trying to get a phone.
Yep. And whoever curses his father or mother must be put to death. Hey, we learned something important here. Words mean something. Right? God takes words seriously, and there's proof of it right there. Now, some people say cursing is when you say naughty words, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what it's talking about here. This curse is when you invoke God's name to bring wrath upon someone. You invoke it's like the opposite of blessing someone. Okay? Think of it as the opposite of blessing someone. So, but it's serious. God says words are serious. So we need to be careful what we say. Do not murder. And so that was the original command. We get more information. But if someone willfully kills another after deliberate planning, they planned it out. I hate this guy. I'm going to kill him. You are to take him even from my altar and put him to death. Okay? If he murders somebody, he has to pay with his life. Okay? So God's showing us more. First he says do not murder, but now he's telling us what murder looks like and what is the penalty going to be. He says do not steal. Okay? Now we got Wile E. Coyote making off with the sheep, right? That's his goofy cousin. Right. And so what's the law? I mean, the original, the 10 words said do not steal, but now we get more information. What happens if somebody does steal? If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for the ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Okay, so if he takes the sheep or the ox and he sells it or he kills it and eats it, he has to pay back 5. If the stolen beast is found alive in his possession, okay, he's stolen it, but he hasn't done anything with it yet, whether it's an ox or a donkey or sheep, he shall pay double. Okay, so he has to give back 2. So if he steals it and kills it or sells it, he has to pay back 5. But if they get it in possession and it's given back to its owner, then he has to pay 2. Okay. You like the sheep?
No.
Oh. The coyote's creepy.
No, that's his cousin.
All right. Now, I'm not sure which of the 10 commandments this falls under. Can you do anything with that picture, Jen? Without taking me out? Okay, the other half of that picture got cut off. She's pointing. Okay? And we all know what that sign up on the forehead means, right?
It means
What's it mean, Augie? Loser. Okay, so she's doing that with her one hand, and her other hand she's pointing at somebody, okay? And she's like pointing and laughing, right? We call that point and laugh, right? But what does Yahweh say? He says, if you come upon your enemy, not your friend, not your neighbor, okay, somebody you don't like or doesn't like you, if you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey straying, you must return it to him, okay? If you see the donkey which belongs to someone who hates you, lying down helpless under its load, you are not to pass him by, but you're to go and help him free it. Wow. We are not allowed to, I really get tempted on this sometimes, guys, I got to tell you. If somebody's been really mean to me and then something bad happens to them, I'm like, yeah, poetic justice, right?
Yeah.
I have a tendency to want to point and laugh, but God says no. Yeah, because they're in trouble and they were mean to me, right? But God says that's wrong. Yahweh says that's wrong. You can't do it. No pointing and laughing. Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it, G2? Yeah, tough one for me, too. Okay, good job. It is. Okay, and so after God, and there's a lot of them. If we went through all of the precepts that God put out to explain His 10 words, we'd be here pretty much all morning. So I picked out a few to give you as an example. And then in chapter 24, it says Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders went up, and they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. And he did not lay his hand on the chief men of the people of Israel, and they beheld God, and they ate and drank. So 70 guys, plus Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, went up on the mountain and had a meal with God. Now, you think that picture's accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think's wrong with it, Augie? Well, yes.
He's in the
No, the mountain's not on fire, is it?
not very bright.
And they're taking food with them. I'm thinking, I don't know. Do you think they took food with them?
Yeah.
Well, they could have, but don't you imagine that if Yahweh invites you to a meal with him, probably he's going to provide something to eat, wouldn't he? All right. I mean, the Bible doesn't say, we're just supposing here. So, but critical thinking, when we see pictures, we got to say, well, is that accurate or not? I don't know. I have a problem because it says, now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain and in the sight of the people of Israel. And Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. So I'm thinking this, bright, shiny day, probably, maybe not so good. And there's a road. Yeah. 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 There's a road. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So the very last thing we're told in this Torah portion is that Moses enters the cloud and went up on the mountain. And all the people saw him. All the people saw him go up into that. Okay? And Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. That's long. How long is that? No, it's 40 days, but it's like a month and 10 days. Ish. Yeah, Elliot. He went up into the cloud and the fire. That's the way I read it.
It's Satan and God talking to each other. It's called. I, I don't know what it's
You're talking
called.
about Job?
Okay.
If I were
And we have to remember what the mountain looked like that Moses was going up to. This is a description here in Deuteronomy, okay? How the people were viewing this whole thing. So this isn't in the Torah portion, but this is Moses telling the story later again. When you heard the voice coming out of the darkness, okay, imagine a voice coming out of the darkness as the mountain blazed with fire. Are you getting a picture here? You came to me, all the heads of your tribes and your leaders, and you said, here, listen to us. Adonai, our God, has shown us his glory and his greatness. We have heard his voice coming from the fire. And we have seen today that God does speak with human beings and they stay alive. That was a miracle to them. They're like, I can't believe I'm still alive. But why? Why should we keep risking death? This great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Adonai our God anymore, we will die. For who is there of all humanity that has heard the voice of the living God speaking from the fire, as we have, and stayed alive? And then they make this statement, you go near. We're going to die, Moses, but you go near and hear everything Adonai our God has to say. Like, okay, so they see Moses going up the mountain. Just saying, hang on just a second. They see Moses going up the mountain into this great fire. What do they think is going to happen to Moses?
he will die.
He's probably going to die.
Yeah, he will.
And then he's up there 40 days. Okay, so just kind of leading into the next Torah portion because they do some stuff because they believe Moses is going to die. I don't know. We'll find out next week. Tune in next week. We'll find out if Moshe dies. Do you have a question, G2? Okay. Yeah, I'm copying it right out of the Bible. Copy and pasting. Probably. Probably. I just don't work at it that hard. Me too. I just copy and paste. All right. Okay, so Hebrew letter of the week, lamed, means a staff. And, like a staff has a crook in it, and the shepherd uses it to control the sheep. Okay. Well, if you look at the early Hebrew, it and especially Middle Hebrew, really looks like a staff. Yeah. And it has a numerical value of 30. So if we put a lamed and an aleph together, what number would we have? We would have 31. Aleph is worth 1. Okay. And the lamed is worth 30. So if we put a lamed and an aleph together, we would have 31. Okay. And here's some words to start with lamed. Lechem means bread, and that starts with a lamed. And if you remember, Bethlehem is Bet Lechem, house of bread. So there's a bait and then a lechem, okay? And there in the middle, what do we do at Sukkot? We wave the lulavs, right? The palm branches and the fruitful trees and whatever, those are lulavs. That begins with a lamed. And our heart is lev, and that also starts with lamed. That's how you make a lamed when you're practicing on the sheets that Miss Kathy gives you.
Oh.
Make sure that one part goes up above the line. That's really important. It looks like a 7, but then you got to make that part that goes up. Okay. Good job. All right. You can do your activity sheets. Thanks, guys.